Hello and welcome to the video. Or more specifically, welcome to part 1 of the Warriors of Swiftclan, which is a part of my Clangen challenge. Which if you don't know what Clangen is or what Swiftclan is or what I'm talking about, maybe go back and watch the first or second or third video in the series, because I don't feel like explaining it again. But as I said, this is the first part, because there will be likely more than one part, considering there are many, many cats that come to exist in a clan over 100 moons, and all of them have been drawn and have some amount of story to them, to my great regret. But before we get started with the illustration part of this video, series, I must, as always, give you a little bit of a warning that this is not, in fact, for young children at all, because this will cover topics such as violence, murder, animal death, kitten death, illness, complicated relationships, drama, and some bits of unhealthy mindsets and actions that may or may not become intertwined with the whole murder warning that I mentioned. If you're still interested in watching, let's get into it. Winfern was a hunter who specialized in catching birds when she lived in one clan. It was a fine life. She had no qualms about it. However, when Hatchowl approached her about leaving the clan, she took the opportunity. In Swiftclan, Winfern was so much more than just a hunter. She was a fighter, a teacher, a scout. She was respected and trusted, and even given the clan's very first apprentice, Inkypaw, to train. A responsibility that Winfern thrived under. She had always wanted kits of her own, and teaching a young apprentice gave her a taste of what her dream of motherhood might look like one day. She even took on training Popfur's apprentice, Lampaw, when it became clear that Popfur had no interest in doing so. Aside from the traditional lessons of hunting, tracking, combat maneuvers, and camp caretaking, Winfern made sure to teach her protégés that a warrior must be prepared at all times. A lesson she taught by ambushing Inkypaw when her pupil was least expecting it. Inkypaw was not nearly as amused by these training sessions as the rest of the clan was. Though it is a different sort of preparedness that a cat needs when Winfern and Lampaw happen upon an abandoned kit. Of course they rush it back to camp to be treated by the medicine cat, Riverspot, and Winfern is relieved when the medicine cat tells her that the young kit will live and be known as Droplet Kit. Had she been allowed to, Winfern would have adopted the tiny scrap of white fur then and there, but Hailstar forbade it. Droplet Kit would be raised by the clan as a whole, not by a single warrior already tending to an apprentice. And while Winfern complied with Hailstar's edict, she wasn't satisfied. Winfern had always wanted to be a mother, but she was never blessed with a family. No mate had taken her, and no kits had been gifted to her, not even the stray Droplet Kit. And though she longs for family, she never wavers in her duty to Swiftclan. While having a family is her dream, her place in Swiftclan is her pride. She leads patrols, she teaches apprentices, and dotes on the clan's kits. And she cheers for her apprentice when Inky Nose is named a warrior of the clan, a representation of her hard work and dedication. So why is it that Hailstar should name Popfur as the next deputy of Swiftclan after Hatchowl retires? Surely it is clear that she, Winfern, is the more reliable of the two. She had mentored Popfur's apprentice nearly as much as he had. But, ever the respectful warrior, she does not speak out against the choice and bends her proud head to the new deputy. Filled with doubt and rejection, she goes on a solo patrol, more to gather her thoughts than anything else. And she is so distracted that she is taken by surprise when a rogue attacks. Bursting from the long grass, the rogue slashes her pelt before fleeing. It is so sudden that Winfern is both stunned and shamed by the encounter, wearing the bloody evidence of her failure on her back. It seems it is she who needed more lessons in preparedness. With Popfur assigning patrols and managing warriors, Winfern takes to looking after Droplet Paw, despite the apprentice not being assigned to her. She isn't mothering the young Tom, she is just being a good warrior, helping out with an energetic apprentice. Hailstar can't forbid that. Not that Winfern resents the leader. In fact, Winfern has grown quite fond towards the other she-cat, even affectionate towards her. Living through the founding of a new clan is difficult, and more than a few times Winfern and Hailstar had found solace and comfort in one another. But for Windfern, it could never be more. Even when Hailstar proposes they become mates, she says no. Windfern has always wanted kids of her own, and to accept Hailstar as her mate would mean giving up on that dream. So she lets the other she-cat go, so that she might find happiness with another. But, despite her efforts, Windfern isn't able to have a litter of her own. However, motherhood was not yet beyond her grasp, for tragedy strikes when a patrol returns with Riverspot, 3 newborn kits, and Lambsplash's body. The young she-cat, who Windfern hadn't even known was pregnant, had died in labor outside of camp. Windfern doesn't hesitate to step forward and take in the kits as her own. They aren't her blood, but they will be loved. Unfortunately, Windfern died not long after this, never able to see the kits she so longed for grow into the cats they would become. And if you're wondering how she died, I don't know. I was not taking the best of notes during this first 100 moons, and Windfern was one of the earlier deaths too. So I was still on the learning curve, and she fell through the cracks. I don't know how she died, and I don't know exactly when she died either. I just know that when she died, I was upset, and I am 80% certain it was before the kits became warriors. I don't know if it was before they became apprentices, though. I think it was, but, leave it to the imagination, I suppose. When choosing to leave one clan, Black Song was also choosing to leave his family behind. His parents, his siblings, his friends. At the time, leaving one clan was risking everything, and he couldn't bear to have his loved ones carry that burden alongside him. So he told no one, and fled in the chaos of rebellion, never to see his family again. Once settled in his new home of Swiftclan, Black Song is the first to critique it. His words are often disparaging and act like stinging nettles against his clanmates' ears, for Black Song always sees the flaws first and rarely praises the good. But this does not come from a place of true scorn or bitterness. Rather, Black Song feels a need to prove to himself that leaving one clan was the right choice, and for that to be the case, he needs to make sure Swiftclan is the best it can be. However, his words linger in the minds and confidences of his clanmates. And rather than growing stronger for the critiques, Black Song's comments lead his fellow warriors to second-guess themselves as well as each other. A clan filled with less forgiving cats might have called it karma when Black Song is attacked by a fox and has his lovely tail mangled. Almost like it is a physical marker of his ugly attitude. But Riverspot and the inquisitive Inkypaw are kind to the injured Tom, and their cheerful demeanors keep Black Song in good enough spirits to sniff out herbs for Riverspot when he is able, rather than wallowing in self-pity as he heals. In fact, it seems his injury was a sort of blessing in disguise for the grumpy Tom, as the time spent with Riverspot and Inkypaw bring companionship into his life, something that fills a hollowness that has sat with him ever since leaving one clan and his family behind. Once healed, Black Song takes to joining at least one of his friends on patrol. Black Song takes to joining at least one of his friends on every patrol. This softening towards others and gentleness towards the young Inkypaw must have caught Hailstar's eye, for she names him as mentor to the young Droplet Paw when the orphan kit comes of age. Black Song grumbles about being made a mentor, but can't quite hide his pleasure at the honor. However, being named a mentor and doing the duties of one are different things, and Black Song learns the challenges of teaching rather quickly when trying to get his rambunctious apprentice to do anything other than battle training. Perhaps Hailstar would have some advice? He seeks out the leader for guidance, and is left perplexed. Black Song doesn't know why Hailstar has such an odd mix of intense interest in Droplet Paw's training, while also being so dismissive of the young Tom's achievements. It is frustrating, and Black Song knows that other cats see it too, as Lambsplash and Riverspot have been more and more at odds with the leader. Regardless, Hailstar has no words of advice for him, and Black Song struggles to rein in the wild but strong apprentice he has been handed. When Droplet Paw is named Droplet Burrow and made a warrior of Swiftclan, he is proud. He is! It's just, well, He supposes he thought he would have come away from mentorship liking his apprentice to some degree. But then Droplet Bro always did have his own ideas about how things are to be done, and Black Song can't deny that the Tom is a worthy warrior, even if he seems to be his opposite in every possible way. Shortly after seeing his apprentice promoted, Black Song once again finds himself before the hungry jaws of a fox. Just like in moons past, he feels the fangs rip into the scar-hardened skin of his tail, taking blood and fur, but ultimately failing to take his life. Or so it would have seemed. The infection and fever that sets in after the attack leaves Black Song shaking and delirious. Riverspot and Inky Nose tend to their ill and injured friend, but in the end, it is into StarClan's claws that Black Song falls. Lambkit knows little of where they came from, just memories of warmth and hay. But when Hailstar and Hatch Owl bring her into Swiftclan, she drinks in her new home, determined to remember everything. She does her best to help out around camp despite her young age, and sneaks out of camp to learn the lay of the land well before any cat would let her out unattended. She even challenges Windfern to mock battles to train. She is filled with eagerness to become an apprentice, and can hardly wait for the day she is 6 moons old. And when the day comes, she is apprenticed to Popfur, a strange sort of cat. A strong one, no doubt, but Lampaw finds herself having to first learn how to understand and read her mentor before she can learn from his battle experience and pick up any actual skills. At times, Lampaw admires and envies her fellow apprentice Inkypaw, admires them for how supportive they are of their fellow clanmates, and envies them for how easily they get along with every cat, including their mentor Windfern. Why couldn't Lampaw have been given such a good and frankly normal cat like Windfern for her mentor? Luckily, Windfern and Inkypaw are happy to share their training with her when Popfur forgets he has an apprentice to train. It is one such shared patrol that Lampaw discovers an abandoned kit, and together she and Windfern race the small thing to Riverspot. Lampaw has never felt such fear as she did seeing that tiny body shivering in the cold, fighting to survive long enough to be found. Once the kit has managed to make it to Sunrise and pronounced likely to live, it is named Droplet Kit. As an apprentice, Lampaw has been learning and practicing with all her worth, but still there's a cloud of self-doubt that hovers over her. She wasn't born a clan cat, and she makes mistakes. Can she really ever be good enough to become a warrior like Inky Nose? These thoughts plague her in training, and she fears Popfur will cast her away for her distraction. But instead, the Tom sits with her and asks her what sort of mental flea is eating her pelts. Inky Nose hesitates to speak. Her mentor can be unpredictable, absent-minded, but never cruel. So she takes a chance and puts her trust in him. He listens to her worries as they spill from her, and rather than scold her or dismiss her, he reassures her that she is a skilled cat and has impressed him time and time again with her ability to learn. She'll make a fine warrior, that he swears. She hadn't known Popfur had been paying any attention to her skills, and knowing that even this strange but strong warrior has faith in her gives her the confidence to train even harder. And soon his prediction comes to pass, as Hailstar names her Lambsplash before the whole clan, honoring her hard work. Lambsplash feels delighted as she is finally, truly a part of the clan. But something pulls at her too. A need for closure for her past. She decides to visit the farm where she was found and discovers a 2-leg nest with tasty treats that remind her of something. Something from her kittenhood. Something long lost. She knows she shouldn't, but that hint of a memory pulls her, and she returns time and time again, till the 2-legs catch her, placing a strange thing around her neck. Yowling and hissing, claws swiping and feet kicking, she escapes and flees back to the clan, a twisted tale about grasping monsters on her tongue to explain her new and utterly unnatural accessory. She told no one, not a single soul, not even the medicine cat, about the swell of her belly. the flutter of life that made her feel sick with anxiety. How could she? She was so ashamed and couldn't bear to reveal her secrets to the clan and have them turn her out. So she resolved to have her kits in secret and give them up. When her belly rippled with pain, she knew it was time and ventured out into the storm and snow alone. But the pain came too fast and with too much blood. She felt it all slipping away and prayed with her last thought to StarClan to save her kits' lives, knowing her own was at its end. Crestnoise comes to Swiftclan as an outsider, welcomed as a set of able paws to help the small clan grow, which works well enough for him. The territory is rich in prey, and the cats of Swiftclan are quite naive. They tend to assume the best of him, which makes it quite easy for the clever Crestnoise to give only the worst. But really, can he be blamed for seizing opportunity when it presents itself? Strife between TangoClan and Swiftclan leaves such fortuitous gaps where an enterprising cat, such as himself, can find fertile ground to plant seeds. What are a few clan secrets between business partners, after all? Granted, all his sweet words and clever plots can do nothing against illness, especially when Swiftclan's only medicine cat is sick herself. But Crestnoise refuses to die in such a mediocre way. He has lived too long to be done in by a mere cough. And survive he does. In fact, he turns his illness into a boon in true Crestnoise fashion, claiming the illness weakened him, and that with his age, it is time for him to retire and rest. The clan doesn't fight him on this, and Crestnoise settles in well to his new life of leisure. A small hiccup of a fire in camp causes an annoying amount of commotion in the clan, but Crestnoise is well prepared to preserve his life and is hardly surprised to learn that Riverspot, the old crone, hadn't been as lively as he and perished in the flames. He won't miss her, and the upheaval it causes to the leader Hailstar and the clan itself is quite entertaining to see, but not having a medicine cat at all could pose a problem. More so when war is officially declared between Swiftclan and Lightning Clan, though it doesn't last long. And besides, war and battles are a young fool's game, and Crestnoise is well beyond such frivolities. Instead, he spends his time on pleasure, on eating good food, on sleeping in the best beams of sunlight, and on finding relations outside of the clan's borders. Till one day, his long, lonesome walks out in the territory produces a kit, J-Kit. Crestnoise claims to have found the near newborn abandoned and, good-hearted as he is, took it in. But any cat with eyes can see the plain resemblance between the two Toms, though none challenge Crestnoise on it. In his last mood of life, Crestnoise is quite annoyed at his clan. They speak often and loudly about Frond Falcon, and how handsome he is. It is nauseating to listen to, not in the least part due to Crestnoise's own jealousy over the Tom's youth and health as his own declines. Till one day, he simply never awakens from his nap, having passed, perhaps unjustly, into StarClan. And that is all for this first set of warriors, who are all dead. That was not intentional, but also not super surprising considering the series is covering 100 moons and warriors especially tend to live fast lives. If you enjoyed or are curious about this clan, then feel free to check out the other videos in the series where I go over the lives and times of the leaders, deputies, medicine cats, and mediators of Swiftclan. And more warrior videos are on their way. How many? Dunno. But at least 1, 2, maybe 3 more? That's a future problem to figure out. If you're interested in following these guys as I work through the rest of the cats, then maybe subscribe? Just an idea. Just an idea. Also, before we go, quick question. How obvious was it that I hated Crestnoise? Useless guy joins the clan, causes problems, gives me one singular throwaway kit, who was also a problem by the way, and then doesn't even have the decency to die in an interesting way. How dare he? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed and have a good rest of your day /night/whatever. See you in the next one. Bye!